Hi everybody, Chris here from Truly Holistic. In this video, I'm going to talk about a YouTube video I watched last night, which had a panel of physicists talking about a number of things in regards to anywhere from Einstein's theories to Stephen Hawking's theories, just evolvement in regards to humanity. And going to talk about a few things they mentioned, and then give my observation on what they mentioned in regards to all the mathematical equations, all the theories that they have, because there's a ton of theories with very little knowing or understanding to those theories. Sadly, that's a downside to science, because the science is a mind creation. The purpose of the mind is to allow us to see the effect to the cause, which is our observation, without knowing. The knowing and the understanding of that observation lies with the cause to that effect, which sadly, as the human, we are blinded to, because our eyes are invisible sights, only 0.0035% of the electromagnetic spectrum of light. And sometimes some of these answers go beyond this universe or this reality, this dimension. So, there's many theories, and they had some really good points, and I'm going to give my observation as a quantum healer in relevance to what they had to say. So here we go. So one of the questions that they brought forth was, when will uploading our brain become a reality? Now, my observation on this is obviously from a physicist point of view, a science point of view. They see our consciousness as our brain. Okay? Our brain and brain activity is merely just a visual representational expression of consciousness. Okay? So it's not really the origin of where your consciousness comes from, if you understand that. Also, when I Google search the word consciousness, and especially with Google Images, and it shows a whole lot of photos of heads and brains, that is a mind projection or viewpoint of what they feel is consciousness. So as I say, we live in a reality which us perceiving this reality as a physical reality comes from 0.0035% of the electromagnetic spectrum. So it's a perception. It's not an absolute. It's not a fact. Okay? And as I said, within science is a mind creation. The mind is there to limit us to merely seeing the effect to the cause, which becomes an observation. So hence, science relies on observation. For example, one of the physicists said things have to be confirmed by observation. Well, that's going to become a problem with because our observation is so little. We only see so very little. So that's a limitation in itself, right? That they're placing in regards to how they see science and the validation of what they call an absolute or a fact, which there is no absolutes. Anything can be molded and shaped according to anybody's will, because each one of us has something unique from one person to the other, and that is called perception. Okay? So everyone's looking for their own truth. There's not one truth. There's not one absolute. So coming back to when will uploading our brain become a reality, again, they're not seeing the greater picture of things. Consciousness comes through your heart, doesn't actually come from the brain. Okay? Again, it's all based on a mind projection, not true consciousness projection. Okay, and the mind is bound to the human is bound to duality, which is a sliver of reality. Okay, so when they're saying when we'll be uploading our brain becoming a reality, when will uploading our brain become a reality, they're essentially looking at we will become a computer, but my higher aspects of self, which are evolved variants of me that live outside this reality, which means on a multi-dimensional, multiverse level, already call me an interface. They say that the idea of calling yourself human is not authentic. You're not physical, you're not human. You are just an interface for an intelligence or a consciousness to go through you. That's where they get the ideas of a holographic universe. So they question when we're going to become a computer, which is an interface, but really we already are one, okay? Because there is no disconnection to what we perceive as the body and spirit. We are a projection of that because we are not physical, okay? That is just a perception being within such a sliver of reality with a lack of understanding and knowing of our true identity. Okay, move on. Physicists, and I don't know if I'll pronounce this very well, physicist Michio Kaku, he mentioned this: the soul is information. I was like, straight away, oh, that pricked up, it got my attention. The soul is information that can be put into holographic form. What did I just mention? Right? So you are a reflection of your consciousness. Now, what's the closest aspect to your consciousness? Your soul. It's interesting he mentions this. The soul is information that can be put into holographic form. So if you pass away, it survives. So he actually says, transcending the human race. Wow, some wisdom being had here. Because what I get guided to, and what I say a lot in my videos, is that it's just a trap to think we are just mortal as the human, okay? That's the limited form. We are infinite, okay? My higher evolved self knows that already, okay? Because they have already ascended. That's why I'm going to take their wisdom, because what's my goal? To ascend, right? So I'm not going to listen to people out there that are throwing darts at a dartboard without the lights on, guessing everything, and saying from scientific literature, this may represent that, or might, or may. That's not words of certainty, is it? Okay, as I say, science is about observation, but that observation that has a lack of knowing and understanding of what that observation represents, or what we're actually observing. Okay, so we see the effect without the cause. So my higher evolved self sees us as infinite. The other intelligence that is trying to direct humanity in a certain way that is according to their agenda, not our evolvement or ascendance, which we call artificial intelligence, knows we are infinite. Hence knows the importance of locking us into a limited capacity through embodiment of the human, embodiment of the mind. The mind is a Trojan horse, it's not you. And this level of existence we call duality, that's there to lock us within a sliver of reality where we don't realize our full potential, that we are infinite. We are creators of reality, not just observants and participants. So there's a lot of truth in what he had to say there. The soul is information. It is. For example, DNA. The symbolic nature of DNA is 2 strands with nucleotides in the middle of it, which is coding. So let's look at this in a more simplistic way. Because again, science is there to make things complex, so you don't understand, get greater knowing and understanding. Let's look at it a symbolic way, in a conscious way. So the 2 strands create a vortex, or what people call a helix. The symbolic nature of that geometry means flow. Okay? Within those 2 strands or columns, we've got coding, which is information. Okay? Information comes from the word information, which comes from geometry. Okay? Geometry is translated into this universe by the universal laws, where it translates frequency into geometry. Okay? So when we look at DNA, DNA is what bridges our ability to connect to our consciousness from our human experience. Because from a human experience, if we go with the flow, which is staying out of the mind, because the mind is always creating obstruction and blockages of flow, we allow a state or a space where we can connect to a higher aspect of self, which provides more wisdom, which is information. Okay? So the soul is information. The DNA is the connection of our soul. That's what DNA represents. Okay? And as it can be put into a holographic form, yes, because we can become a projection of that, okay? Because we are not physical, as I say. That's just a perception that comes across with a lack of knowing and understanding. And we continue to survive, of course, because we're always infinite, okay? How would that change our life if everyone knew that they were infinite, right? What's the greatest fear? And the fear is the biggest obstruction of all, and the predetermination, initiation of dis-ease and illness and suffering is fear. What's the greatest fear of all humans? Death, okay? Because we don't know what's next, because we believe we're just mortal beings, we're little old humans, this whole mentality of lack, okay? Anyway, let's move on. The way, also what was said was the way we see the cosmos. Oh, actually, yeah, this is actually one of my comments I wrote here as a note. Now, physicists and generally people, the way they look up in the sky and they see the cosmos, okay, space. Really, the way that we perceive what the cosmos is, and from that perspective, originates from how we see ourselves. Okay, from the embodiment of the human, which is connected to what? The mentality of lack. Okay? We see ourselves as little old humans that requires another intelligence to move us forward. That's what the globalists are saying. That's why they're embracing artificial intelligence, because they see that as an advanced technology that can progress humanity in a particular direction. But what I see here is a quantum healer that deals with intelligence and consciousness as I connect to a higher aspect of me, which all of you have that ability to do. If we all did that, we wouldn't require artificial intelligence. Okay? Artificial intelligence is the thing that locks us in a limited state. So therefore, we will embrace them. Okay? But through our creation ability, we will manifest according to their agenda, which allows them to grow and evolve and ascend, not us. Okay? So our viewpoint from a human embodiment is that we are an observant and participant here to be on a rock, which we call the earth, that goes around a star, which we call the sun, and the vastness and expansion is above our heads, when really the expansion is within us. Okay? So it's change of perspective. Okay? So when we see that expansion of within us and we realize that actually we are creators, we're not observants and participants, we don't believe in this his story or mythology of that the gods were here and we're just little old humans. We are the gods. It's actually, the story's the other way around. It's a manipulation. It's a mind control that, we will continue to sabotage our creation ability. Because the one of the most common questions I get from people and clients is, how do I manifest? How do I create? And my answer to that is, we're always creating. Every moment of your reality, of your existence, you are creating. Through your choice of where you place your attention and how you use your intention. But if you are unaware of that or unaware of how to use it, you are being directed or guided through the mind to create a reality that is according to another intelligence agenda. Okay? So when we go into that reality, it doesn't feel right. It overwhelms us. It makes us stressed. Because it's a mind creation. It's built on chaos. Chaos is when we use our creation ability with a lack of awareness, understanding, and knowing. Okay? Now, what we're going to talk about now is the physicists were talking about negative matter. That's what their terminology they were using it. Negative matter or negative energy that make things fall up instead of down. Okay, so what force do we know that makes things fall down? Gravity, right? And I bet you, like me, when you went to school, and doesn't matter what level of education, there was such an emphasis on gravity, but not on its opposing force, levity. Okay? So when they're talking about negative matter or negative energy that makes things fall up instead of down, what are they talking about? They're talking about levity. Okay? Now, why they brought this up was Stephen Hawking mentioned about that, if we were going to get into this whole thing about wormholes and even time machines, time travel, wormholes, where we bend the fabric of space-time, and this also includes black holes, is that we need negative energy to keep these things open, right? A wormhole open, the ability to time travel, understanding black holes. There is a need for this negative energy to keep it open. So negative energy equals levitation or levity, which is also another word they call it as repulsion or repulsion technology, right? Or anti-gravity. Okay, so there's something magical in that force, okay, if we want to call it as that, but we'll talk a bit more about that as we go along. Now, I've always used the example of, water like a spring, right? Spring water comes from aquifers deep underground, okay? But there's something that allows that water to levitate up to a high mountain range or to somewhere where it becomes a spring, right? Now, there's no pressure involved there. And then the laws of physics states that if there is anything to go against gravity, it should cause friction, and hence there should be heat. But spring water comes out icy cold without heat. And if there is a river that is fed continuously by that spring water that has levitated, that has that magical quality of levitation in it, that water in that river will remain the same temperature. So it could be hot weather out and about, or it could be below freezing point for that water, but that water will remain flowing. It will bypass the laws of physics. So that's magical, right? That is magic. Okay? What I've come to find out, what creates that levitational capability is hydrogen. Okay? And this is interesting because stars in the cosmos, they are anything from 80 to 85% or more. What are they made of? Hydrogen. Hydrogen is the consciousness of water. Okay? So when we break that word down, hydro, water, genesis of water. The genesis of everything we see in this reality is because it's bound and connected to consciousness. Frequency that's flipped into matter, which becomes our perception of physical reality. Okay? So they're trying to figure out all this. They're still trying to figure this out, physicists, right? Now, another cool thing about levity, so levity's going up. What's another word that we can use for that? To ascend. Ascension, right? Now, the word ascension means to grow and evolve. Consciously, that's what we want to do. We want to grow, personally grow, evolve, ascend. So how do we do that? Through levitation, not gravity. Gravity is another limiting universal law of this universe. Okay, and as I say, there's many universes. Okay, so what was mentioned was that wormholes and time machines require this negative energy, levitation, to keep the black holes from collapsing again, because it's anti-gravitational repulsion technology. Okay, now they also mentioned advanced evolved civilizations knew how to produce this negative energy, right? Okay. Maybe why we can't figure it out, because we feel we need to think our way. Okay? That's a form of limitation, because thinking's through the mind. The mind is a form of limitation. Okay? We need to feel our way, which is a consciousness phenomena where we get to the greater knowing and understanding of the observations than we then are making here, right? And as I said, to go backwards in time, you need negative energy. Again, levitation, okay? So another thing I want to mention about these forces, right? Because we can see them as forces, but we can see them as more than that. Now, gravity, okay, the Latin word for gravity, I'm trying to think whether it was gravis or gravis, one or the other, but that's not important. The meaning to the Latin word for what represents as gravity means heavy. Okay, so things coming down, right? And they talk about atmospheric pressures and stuff like that, how heavy that would feel. Now, when I'm dealing with clients that get overwhelmed, get stressed, okay, that suffer with depression, anxiety attacks, panic attacks, those sorts of things. We're talking about people that, what do they feel? Feel like the weight of the world's on their shoulders. Panic attacks, like a pressure, crushing pressure on my chest. Okay. What's the negative impact to our biomechanics, our skeletal system, our spine? Compression on the spine, what's that? Gravity. So it's a heaviness. Now, when we talk about this existence that we are locked or limited into, which we call duality, which is what enables us to lock into that existence, is embodying the mind, embodying the human, which are limitations, okay, is it lowers our vibration, which, what does it do? It makes us feel heavy, cloudy, a lack of clarity. Get this, the word for levity is levis, I think it is, which means light. So the opposite to heaviness, right? So if we want to look at it from the perspective of weight. Okay, so when we connect more to our consciousness, which is more of expansive existence, what we call neutrality, we swap out duality for neutrality. We swap out human empowerment, embodiment for soul embodiment, so consciousness, and we remove the mind and we connect to consciousness, which are polarities. So when we do that, we feel lighter. Okay, because we're ascending, right? Ascending. Now, that's the weight light. What about the fact that at the core of us, what is consciousness? It's if I go to someone and I say, I want you to connect within you at a deep level, what are we saying? That could be the word soul, that could be the word consciousness, but it also means your light. Your light, right? So the answers for what these physicists are looking for in regards to advancements for humanity, wormholes, understanding black holes, understanding time and time travels, the limitations of time, because time is a universal law that creates a limitation, a measurement here in this universe. Not the other universes, but this one it does. Where's the answers lie? Within connecting to your consciousness, your light. Because light is this negative matter, negative energy they are talking about. But they can't see that because science is limited by the mind. They keep mentioning it. Oh, the greatest minds over time. They mention, you listen to this panel of physicists, they're using the word mind all the time. They are bound to the limitation of the mind. That's why they can't see it. Okay? So this is interesting stuff. Now, so I wrote this note just as a final part of this video. And I wrote this: why I believe gravity is so emphasized in schooling and our education, science, physics, and not levity, is because it's in alignment with how we see ourselves through human embodiment. Embodiment of the mind, which the mind is a Trojan horse, it's not you. The embodiment of mind is like wearing a mask. It's not you. That's not your true identity. Okay? That's why people will say, oh, we live in a matrix or prison world. That prison, that matrix, is these things that are limiting us. The embodiment of the mind. The embodiment as a human. Being part of this limited existence sliver of reality, which we call duality. Because what's that providing? Gravity, heaviness, low vibration. Okay? But really, what is the secret? What is that magic thing, that key to unlock, to free ourselves? Levity, or what they call negative matter, negative energy. Okay? But it's through aligning ourselves through soul embodiment, so consciousness, not the mind, which then allows us to rise above duality, which we call neutrality, which is lifting ourselves above universal law or restrictions of this universe, because we start to tap into aspects of self that exist on a multitude of universes, realities, dimensions, that all have different universal laws. So in one universe where a variant of you exists that you can dial and connect to for wisdom or information or energy, maybe a universe that is not bound to time. It's not bound by the limitations of the mind. Okay? So this is big, big stuff. Anyway, I hope you've really enjoyed this video, and I've given you some insight to, again, where physicists are, quantum physicists are, but the understanding that there is still a limitation in what they are practicing, because they are binding themselves to the limitations of the mind, limitations of human embodiment, and also limitations of this duality existence. And the only way we can penetrate that ceiling, that wall, that limitation that we are placing ourselves within is through consciousness. Till next time. See you later.